Do you know what to do during a choking emergency?
Every immigration argument that you hear, they never come from well, how does it affect you personally? Well, you know, these immigrants, they come to our country, they burden our tax system. What they do is they come here and they get into our education system and our health care, and I got to pay the tax. My taxes have to pay that. Well, what the fuck are you doing to me? Every time you have a kid, because it's American, I should pull up a chaise lounge and wave a flag while 15 of those things come out of you. Oh, I can't wait to pay for these. They're American. I have a vasectomy and an abortion on my record, but I can't wait for all your fucking fat-headed Midwestern kids to come out of here. What are you, Catholic? Come on, keep moving and multiply. Love it. I'll get a second job. No, well, these immigrants, they don't speak the language. Then don't talk to them. I solved your problem. That was quick. You know who speaks the language perfectly? Your next door neighbor. You've lived there 8.5 years. You've never said one fucking word to that guy. You avert eye contact should you check the mail at the same time. So why would you give a shit what the guy selling Gnipganovs in a cart in the park speaks? It's none of your fucking business. And all the cliched arguments like that, well, they're lazy, they're shiftless, and they're criminals, and all this. All those arguments go against the main cliched argument of their taking American jobs. I live on the Mexican border. I live 7 miles off the Mexican border in a town, Bisbee, Arizona, a little town. I can go out any day and watch Border Patrol arresting these guys by the dozen, 11 at a time out of a Dodge Omni, like a clown car with plastic cuffs. And you're right, they don't speak the language, and they probably have no education. They don't have fucking shoes half the time. They're like barefoot and tattered castaway, like Gilligan's Island shorts, and the fucking dirty t-shirt, and dehydrated and wandering the desert for 4 days. And if that guy is as qualified for your job as you are, you're a fucking loser of such
monumental proportions.
Humiliating proportions. I would be ashamed to have anyone find out that guy took my job. He doesn't speak English. What, did they do your job training in pantomime, shithead? Dude. Oh, see it good. Point. I see it, point. Great.
Anyways, that's Doug Stanhope. I interviewed him when I used to have a radio show in Arizona. Funny guy. And that's his bit on immigration, which I put a link to that bit in. I hope y'all can hear me. Hi, Becky, Mark, Kathy, Chris, and Debbie. Hi. So let me tell you how we got here. Well, first off, I walked over here. I don't know how you got here, but I had a really low-key day because the wind was brutal, so that eliminated some stuff. I was up late because I didn't have to get up early because normally I get up 5 a.m. to go biking on Saturday, but I knew yesterday that wasn't going to happen. So I lollygagged around, and what happened is the power went off. Hi, Ann and Kathy and Rachel. The power went off in my area. So everything shut down. Nothing you can do except wait, right? Well, the power came back on. So I stroll over to my desk about 10 minutes ago, maybe 11 minutes ago. Well, it's 6:04, about 10 minutes up. And I realized my computer didn't come back on with the power. Like other things did, like the TV and the clocks, but the computer didn't. So my computer wasn't on, and I got 10 minutes to get set up. Okay, pop, turn on the computer, tick, tock, tick, tock. It's booting up, I guess is the term. So took about 5 minutes to boot, at least. And then I'm trying to set up my screens and simulcast and everything. And every time I hit something, with my cursor, it looks at me, back at me, and goes, yeah, not right now. Come back in a little bit. I'm watching the clock. There's a clock on the computer that works, and the clock is, how you say, winding down. And so I meant to have Doug Stanhope's bits on immigration already loaded in, ready to go, but I didn't. I barely got it together in time for a 6 o'clock podcast. So let me tell you why I like that bit by Doug Stanhope, and why I put in Ball of Confusion, which second time I've done that. There's the lyrics of Ball of Confusion are pretty good. I know most of you know that because most of you grew up with the Temptations. So Ball of Confusion is not novel to you. You heard it when you were young. You maybe have heard it many times since. It's just that right now, with everything that's going on, I think we have 11 million young people. They may not even be young anymore. I don't even know. Dreamers. And dreamers have been trying to become citizens for years and years and years. And the Congress of the United States and the president have bantied about how to remedy it. And at one time, there was a plan. There was a plan. And, but let me tell you, to be a dreamer, and I'm pulling this out of my back of my brain. If I had to, you would have assumed I had totally together. Well, I was nervous. So immigration, historically, the dreamers have been here. They've had to register every year. They have to never get any kind of criminal violation. I mean, an accusation. Forget being convicted of crime. They have to every year, or maybe even more than every year, they have to go through a series of qualifications to stay a dreamer. Most of them go to school, they work, they're here legally. Technically, their status is unsecured because there is no actual legal status for them, other than that the presidents have been giving them a status while the Congress tries to work it out. John McCain in Arizona was actually very progressive on this issue and wanted to provide a path. And, it's just been Republican presidents have killed the plans, even when it was bipartisan. Then there was no bipartisan. So 1 year, Democrats and Republicans agreed to implement the Dreamers Act to provide a pathway to citizenship for all these primarily Mexican young people. But since it got vetoed one time, when it came back, the same bill, the Republicans decide, yeah, no, we don't agree to this. But you did. It was partially your bill. It was, you guys helped develop this. John McCain was integral. Yeah, no, we don't agree with immigration for the Dreamers. So they've been in this very peculiar status, which when Donald Trump was elected, he said, I'm withdrawing their status. And we'll begin to deport them anytime we feel like it, right? Federal courts said, no, that's arbitrary and capricious. You can't just, these people have been living here for years. They have standing to fight to remain here. The legal battle will go on. This will not be resolved by presidential fiat or executive order. So we have those persons. I think it was 11 million and maybe 3 times that. Meanwhile, every modern industrialized nation in the world has been confronting a problem. And that problem is a labor force. So white people like me have 2 kids, max. Some of you have more. Some of you have less. Some of you have none. Okay? Well, that's true across the board for Anglos throughout Europe and the United States and Canada. It's even true in a large part of Asia, like Japan. The thing is, and Japan's got other issues. It's just an island. They sort of have to be careful about population control. So Western industrialized nations, as we were aging, the boomers were aging and left the workforce, labor force, the skilled labor force, the I don't know what you call it, like your programmers and stuff like that, intellectual force. As we retire, most countries have not had enough immigrants or citizens to fill in the positions as they're abandoned. So there is one country that has avoided the pitfalls of a diminishing labor force. That one country is the United States of America. Studies show that our legal and illegal immigrant population are the underpinnings of our labor force, both high level and labor, and that the argument that immigrants detract from our society does not hold up under the magnifying glass. So here's what typically happens if you're an illegal. Let's just talk about illegals, because they've been kicked by the Republican Party now for approximately 18 years, I would guess. I mean, they weren't a part of any significant argument. And then all of a sudden, we started scapegoating Mexican illegals. They're taking the jobs. None of it was particularly true. Some of it was true, but you had to know in context. So, and there are studies done by universities in the following. So illegal immigrants, in order to work a lot of jobs, must provide a Social Security number. And so what they would typically do is they would get a Social Security number and submit it, oftentimes to somebody who was dead. And then they would have a percentage of their wages would be held back, FICA, I think it's called, for Social Security, right? So when they reach 65, they'd get money back. But because it wasn't really their Social Security number, they weren't getting any money back. They were never going to get any money back. It was a sacrifice they made, like 7% or 11% of their income that just evaporated every paycheck. But they tolerated it because there were more jobs here than there were in Mexico, a little higher paying, and they sent a lot of money back to Mexico. And that's another one of the arguments. Oh, they're just sending the money back to Mexico. No, actually, the bulk of the money was spent on rent, buying vehicles, eating, furniture, clothing, the whole thing. What they left in the Treasury as Social Security, the amount of money is in the billions, and it surpasses the amount that we've ever been able to demonstrate that illegal aliens tapped into in terms of free education and free healthcare. That if you took the monies that we argue are simply wasted, we say wasted on these illegal immigrants, giving them free education, their children. We're giving their children free education. We're giving them health care. Not particularly true. Most of even citizens don't get health care. All right. So they're leaving billions of dollars in our treasury when they depart and retire back to Mexico with whatever monies they were able to save. But they can't get back the money that the Treasury has. That money goes to the person whose Social Security number is, and oftentimes, as I said, that person was passed away. So our diminution in our labor force, particularly manual labor force, okay? The only reason that our housing construction industry didn't collapse more often is because we had Mexican laborers. The reason most of you can get your freaking lawn cut in the South, especially where it's hot, it's sticky, it's infested with bugs and snakes is because Mexican laborers. The reason your roof can get put on your house after a hailstorm is overwhelmingly Mexican laborers. The tile that is put in your house is frequently put in by, you get my point, okay? So Doug Stanhope comes along, does this routine, and I hear it, and I reach out to him. I said, Mr. Stanhope, Doug, I'd like to interview you on my show. He's like, yeah, it's cool. So I interviewed him on my show. I thought it was a good conversation. He invited me, I guess, I don't know if he invited me, but we bought tickets to his stand-up performance in Tucson at the Congress Theater. Myself and some other friends went. Delightful. The guy's an alcoholic and a chain smoker. That made it a little uncomfortable, but that's okay. And I went to talk to him after the show. You know, he was very pleasant. He's like, come on down to Bisbee. You know, we'll have some drinks, you know, whatever. I was like, yeah, sure. I never did. But so his stand-up routine on immigration, I'm going to just reduce it down to the couple lines that he said that were so freaking true. It's just stunning. He's talking about being in Bisbee. Bisbee is near the border. When you're in Bisbee, Arizona, it's not that hard for you to look up in the sky and see these balloons, these big balloons, what do they call them, like Zeppelins, I don't know. And they've got security cameras on them. They're watching the border, right? So it's close to the border. And he says, you know, he sees these small cars like a Dodge Omni getting pulled over by Border Patrol pretty regularly. And he says, you know, like 10 Mexicans get out. They don't speak English. They have a fourth grade education at best. Their pants are torn. They have no shoes. And he says this, if these people are taking your job, you're a loser of such monumental proportions, you probably shouldn't get out of bed. Think about it. If somebody who doesn't speak English, if somebody who has almost no education can take your job, you're probably not rising to the level of cream. Okay? I've never had any of my jobs, none of my jobs threatened by Mexican laborers or any South American or Central American labor. Okay? And not just my legal job, not just being a lawyer. I'm talking about anything I ever did. Okay? So I also know, and I've talked about this before, I know a number of people from Asia, India, Sri Lanka, Korea, who have come here and gotten their advanced degrees, PhDs and masters, who are now telling me this year, 2020, not 2021, that they're investigating going back to the home country, quitting their jobs, or selling their businesses. These are people who are here legally, okay, but they're immigrants. And they're beginning to say overwhelmingly they don't feel welcome. So they're taking their expertise in microbiology and I don't know what the chemistry, you know, the advanced chemistry and physics and engineering, and they're going back to the home country or to another country where they don't feel they'll experience this type of hostility. That would be a shame, man. That's called a brain drain. That's what we refer to it. When you start having people with the kind of intelligence that these people have and these kinds of degrees and this expertise in artificial intelligence, in IT, when you know computers are what's happening. You start losing your computer experts back to India, where they will be happy eventually to out-manufacture us. They got a lot of people. They can out-manufacture us. They just need to get organized. China already out-manufactures us. And they have a more skilled labor force. They've got a lot of people. So why? Why do we persist in this delusion that we should build a wall, that we should exclude immigrants, completely exclude illegal immigration, and significantly restrict legal immigration from countries of color? By the way, if I didn't tell you before, Nigerian immigrants are the category that arrives here in the United States from all countries and secures a PhD. That shithole country from that shithole continent has more PhDs coming and going in the United States than Donald Trump has ever talked to in his freaking life. Let me assure you that Donald Trump couldn't determine the quality of the brain power that would be sitting in front of him if he was sitting in front of a room full of people who were extraordinarily talented intellectually and all had PhDs. Just like the Republican Party could not acknowledge Dr. Jill Biden, who has a doctorate in education, because one, she's a woman, and two, they don't know what a PhD is. I mean, they just don't honestly know. It's just a couple of letters. They don't really know what it means. They know it means you stayed in school. I don't mean that they're completely oblivious. What I mean is they don't recognize, understand, or have ever submitted themselves to the process that's required to be awarded a PhD, a doctorate in a field, which declares you at some level, at least academically, to be an expert. I've been fighting this battle for a long time. I used to get on Facebook. I used to publish the links to the reports on immigration that destroyed the anti-immigration argument. I would explain the dollars, the cost-benefit analysis. You've heard me make reference to that. Everything in government can typically be can be valued on a cost-benefit analysis. And I've talked about it, but I'll say it again. Cost-benefit analysis. What does it cost me? What do I benefit? When you look at immigration, every rational study has demonstrated that immigration pays for itself. It's not a subtraction, it's an addition. There are also tons of Nigerian nurses willing to work in the U.S. nursing homes, which many Anglos don't want to work in. Thank you for identifying that. Like Lisa said, Mexican laborers are in fact the backbone of a lot of unwanted jobs. You don't see it as much in Dallas. You see it completely in Tucson. You talk about landscape work. I had a half acre of cactus on my property. I was never going out. You wouldn't take a lawnmower out there. It was sand, caliche, and cactus. And it was downhill. And my Mexican landscapers would show up and they would cut down the dying cactus, all of it. They would rake it. They'd haul it out of the wash. They would haul it up to the street, which was about 2.5 stories to the street. They would haul this stuff, put it in the truck, and take it away. Wherein, to go into that half acre, there was no guarantee there wouldn't be rattlesnakes, scorpions, and whatnot. So I was grateful that there were people willing to do something I wasn't willing to do. And then another day, the head of the crew was an American citizen, Mexican, and he had this crew of illegals. But we decided to redo our backyard, to expand our backyard. In order to do that, we had to bring in a bunch of gravel. And so I ordered a truck of gravel to be delivered so that these guys would shovel it out of the driveway to the backyard and spread it around because we were expanding the backyard. And so the guy shows up. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I called them and said, just so you know, it's here. Feel free to come tomorrow early in the morning, because that's typically what they like to do, is they like to come early in the morning and beat the heat. So I said, there's no rush. He's like, no. So he came and he said, we're going to get this done this afternoon. I said, it's over 100 degrees. Why? Just take it easy. And he said to me, he said, Mr. Ken, you're a lawyer. You get to work in air conditioning. You get to work indoors. You've earned it. You've got the education. He said, me, I work outdoors and I work when I can. And we'll get this done this afternoon. That's powerful. Lisa says, I work at a nursing college. And we get many people from foreign countries that want to earn their bachelor's in nursing. Then they go back to their home country and are considered doctors because they have an American education. Yeah, I hope they learned enough to act like doctors. I don't know how to respond to that one. But I do know that we have been a pathway for education for a large part of the world because many of our institutions were accessible and they were excellent. We have institutions of higher learning in the United States, which, while they're pricing themselves out of the market, by the way, they still offer an extraordinary staff, faculty, housing. And like Koreans, they save their money, man, and they send their kid over here and they pay their way because they can't get grants. They pay their education, they pay their housing, they pay their food because they want their kid to get an education in the United States of America, number one. And number two, because getting into a Korean university is so freaking hard because they don't have that much space. So my daughter spent a year in Korea. She could tell you that these kids in her high school went to high school for, 6 hours a day, and then went to school in the evening, these private tutoring schools for another 4 hours, so that when it came time in their last year to take the university exams, they would have the best shot. This is how hard they're willing to put into getting their kids well educated. And here, we've got this segment of population has no respect for education, very little respect for intellect. This was mirrored during the Pol Pot regime in Cambodia. He went around and killed people that had good educations. He killed the doctors and the lawyers and the teachers because he didn't want an educated class to create an uprising against his dictatorship. There was talk that it was not uncommon to kill you or to put you in a re-education camp because you wore glasses. If you wore glasses, you probably could read. If you could read, you were a threat to the Pol Pot administration. Okay? So I have been trying, I tried unsuccessfully to kind of derail with some of my friends this whole immigration xenophobia. I haven't made a lot of headway. And Trump came in and just, it's like, he's too lazy to do this, but you know how a steam locomotive runs, right? They shovel coal into the fire heats the water turns to steam and drives the locomotive. He came in and fueled xenophobia and fueled anti-Semitism and fueled LGBTQ hostility. And half the country bought it, lock, stock, and barrel. And it's embarrassing. If you don't have an education, I wouldn't look down on you. A lot of my friends are poorly educated. It doesn't mean you're not smart. Listen, the most brilliant guy you could ever meet in this lifetime was Gary Corsi. Gary Corsi knew something about every freaking thing you'd ever want to know. And Gary didn't have a high school diploma. Gary would sit in my house because we lived together. He lived in my house with my family. And Gary would be sitting in the living room watching TV. I probably told you this anecdote. And I would go to the kitchen, get something to drink or eat. It was nighttime. I'd come out. Gary would be sitting there going, hey, man, they got this great show about World War II tanks on the military channel. And I'd be like, yeah, thanks, man. I'm going to go watch the comedy. You know, Gary would sit there and you'd be talking about something, and Gary would say, in Mesopotamia, they discovered rocks, which may have been the origins of writing in humankind. Like, I know. I didn't know that they did that in Mesopotamia. In fact, I don't know where Mesopotamia is. In fact, I've heard of Mesopotamia, but I don't know what they're famous for, right? Gary knew something about everything because he absorbed it. He read and he watched things on TV that had some value. I don't do that. Okay, so I'm better educated, but I was never smarter than Gary was. Not ever. I had a little more common sense. It kept me out of trouble. But I was never smarter than Gary, and Gary didn't have a high school diploma. So he's an example. I would never have denigrated Gary's intellect. I did denigrate his lack of a high school diploma because it held him back. But that's really between friends. And of course, those of you that knew Gary, he would always, after I would say, oh, he'd talk about Mesopotamia for 10 minutes. And I'd look at him and say, so that's brilliant, man. So when did you say you're going to take the GED? And I did this enough that it just got to the point where Gary would say, what am I thinking? What he was thinking is go pound sand up your ass. Because he had already told me 100 times to go pound sand up my ass. It got to the point where he didn't even have to say it. He'd just go, what am I thinking? You guess Gary got the smarts between you and he. So Kathy's his sister. I don't know, Kathy. Kathy sent me a picture of her apartment, and it's very tastefully decorated. Bonus, she sends me a note with it and says, I got most of this at like resale stores or something, and I'm like, booyah, that's my girl. I try not to buy anything new until I've exhausted the thrift stores and the consignment stores because I'm just going to get a better deal. It's going to be the same stuff. I'm sorry that when I moved to Tucson, I moved all my furniture and stuff. I paid like 14 grand to pack up my whole house in Dallas and move it to Tucson, only to find out that for the 14 grand, I could have started over. I could have gone to all the thrift stores. There's dozens of them in Tucson. I could have decorated from scratch. Would have been fine. All I had to take was photographs and some personal memorabilia, and I could have been fine. Anyways, so Kathy got some smarts. You all got smarts. First off, you can't sit and listen to me for 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 45 minutes if you're not smart. And I'll tell you why. I'm not arrogant. I'm just telling you that I string sentences together coherently. While I'm not well educated, I didn't go to college. I did go to law school. I read a lot. I have a good vocabulary. And I have a fairly clear stream of consciousness as it arises. So if you were really stupid, I would have lost you in the first 5-10 minutes at the most. Okay? So if you're here, just being here already illustrates that at some level, intellectually, we are kindred spirits. It also says something about your values, which I completely respect, because if you're going to listen to me and you don't get off of this screen, if you don't get off your computer and send me hate mail or tell your friends to send me hate mail or call Facebook and ask that I be banned, then you must have values similar to mine. And if you do, you're good. You're good, man. You got the right. from my point of view, you got the right kind of value system. Again, I know people with other value systems, and I don't, not value system, they have other values. It's not called a system. And so I say about them, I would not denigrate their values. They're often not my values. I have friends who are hunters. I have never hunted an animal. Okay? I've never had a desire to hunt or hurt an animal. I've been hiking for 40 plus years. I've owned guns a good part of my life, and I have no desire to shoot an animal either for my for pleasure or for sustenance, right? I'm telling you, I get lost in the woods and there's me and a squirrel sitting there and he's looking at me and I haven't eaten in 3 days. You know, I'm going to talk to the squirrel. I'm not killing the squirrel because even if I kill the squirrel, quite frankly, I wouldn't know what to do to facilitate eating it anyways. And I've seen guys take out knives and start skinning animals. And I'm like, oh my God, no. Excuse me, I'm just going to lay here and die. That's just me, okay? Lisa's a thrift store addict, shopping at them since she was a teenager. You know, you can kind of tell that from some of the things you post. I wanted eclectic and different clothes, and thrift stores have retro and unique stuff that I love. By the way, I used to go to thrift stores and get vintage clothing, but first off, it was hard to find vintage. And when I found it, it got to be too expensive. And you'd buy a good, vintage shirt, and a year later, it just disintegrated because it was 50 years old, right? So, yeah, I'm a thrift store user. And Becky says she does not want to ever kill an animal either. Good. See, this is what I know, Becky. Even if you hadn't said that, I kind of knew that people that listen to Ken Goldberg's podcast are people that tend to value humans and animals. When we do metta, we're sending out kindness to all living beings. We're saying that every living creature deserves to have a safe and comfortable life without my intrusion. I feel bad eating burgers, baby. You know, I feel bad about it. That ain't no lie. But I eat them. I don't eat them all the time. I try to eat vegetarian more than I eat meat. But you know, I'm always like you, Becky. I'm trying to rise above it. I trained my daughters to be vegetarian, and they used to mock me because we were vegetarian most of the time. But if somebody was smoking some food, I'd eat smoked barbecue food. It was my weakness. But for years, we were vegetarian. My daughters were exclusively vegetarian. I introduced them to it. I have a value on it. So I have friends that will kill animals either because they're for practice or doesn't matter. I don't belittle them. I don't say, oh, you suck. I just recognize this is not a value to me. In fact, it's a conflict with a value of mine, right? So if that's the case, then I'm going to tend to be drawn towards people who rally around the same flag I do, the flag of good values, the flag of humanness, the flag that says people from other countries who are trying to escape poverty or oppression, and we've got room here. Don't let anybody tell you we don't have room here. We got more room than most. Come on. We'll figure out a way to test you, make sure you're not a terrorist, and then we're going to let you in, and then you can prove you're worthy of citizenship. Or at least you can come in and work legally and then turn around and go back home, right? We don't even do that. So, and by the way, the illegal immigration theme is a falsehood too, because we modified our immigration laws over the years to make it harder for people from Central America, South America, Mexico, and Asia to get in the country, right? So we pretend like all they had to do is show up and do this legally. No. People of Mexico have a very hard time getting into this country legally. So when they have exhausted efforts to get in legally, they go ahead and they swim across the Rio Grande or they hike over the mountains. You know, most of you wouldn't do that to live in a better situation. Most of you wouldn't try to tread the Rio Grande River, followed by hiking over 3 mountain ranges in the heat. You know how many carcasses? That's not carcasses. You know how many corpses they find in Arizona every year in the summertime? People that were trying to cross over and died of dehydration, sunstroke, snake bites. Well, I don't kill bugs either. I have a bug catcher. Maybe one day I'll show it here. I have a bug catcher. It will wrap around the bug, but not kill them, and then you take them outside and put them out there. I'm just reading what you guys wrote. Chris is one of the smartest people I know. I doubt I could argue that. Just what little I know about his background would suggest he's smarter than the average bear. For sure. And yeah, I suspect more to be revealed as I get to know him more. And then Lisa saves clothes. She's had 30 years. It's really true that shit comes back around. Yeah, yeah. My dad, when he passed away, I got a sweater, a cardigan sweater that I liked. It was one of the few things he had that fit me because he was a bigger man than I am. And so a lot of his clothes didn't fit me. His shoes fit me in this sweater. It's a cardigan sweater. It was gray. I wore it till it fell apart. It was older than me, I think. And yet I wore it. It was nice. It had those leather buttons, those the folded leather buttons, classy buttons. It was great, man. But eventually the inside was just, worn through. Yeah, Becky, I don't do the fly catcher thing or the mosquito. We do kill mosquitoes if they're come around our house because this West Nile virus. We kill fleas because they hurt my cats badly one year. So if we see fleas in the house or in the yard, and I do have a thing about wasp if they're in close proximity to one of our doorways or windows, because they can be very aggressive. And fitting into them can be a challenge, at least for me. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I bicycle so much. Here's a little note. So I typically I was a 32 for I don't know how many years. And then I became a 33. And then I became a 34 about 10 years ago. No. Yeah, about 10, 11 years ago. And I had to buy pants, 34s. I had bought khakis and jeans. And then I lost weight. And I didn't want the 34s anymore. And so I gave them away. When we moved from Arizona, I gave them to whoever. I don't know who I gave them to. I don't know if Gary got them. I don't know who got them. And I came home to Dallas with just the 33s and some 32s. And then I started to gain weight. And here's what I told myself. I'll be damned if I'm going to go out and buy some more clothes just because I can't keep my mouth shut. So I'm still a 33. Rachel has no bugs in her house, and Becky couldn't care less. If it's a mosquito or roach, they can all die. Huh. I catch these, they're not really roaches, they're water bugs. I know they're not roaches because they're rarely in the kitchen. They tend to be in the bathroom and the bedroom. And I catch them, and I put them outside. If the cats catch them, they kill them. They like to play with them and chew on them until they're dead. Moth, spiders, we catch them, we put them outside. Like I said, mosquitoes, that's a different deal because we don't know which ones carry the West Nile virus, so we just off them if they get in close proximity. Tammy says, bugs, yuck, kill them creepy crawlers. All right, so when I said that we share values, and that was a bond between us. There was a qualifier that went along with that. We don't all share my values about bugs. That's okay. I've been practicing Buddhism, and it's considered bad karma to kill anything. Anne says 30 years ago, I wore a size 4 petite. And I'm guessing you don't wear that now, because otherwise you wouldn't have made that comment. And Lisa's afraid she'll break her neck one day trying to get the hell out of away from a bug. My oldest daughter hates spiders, but she won't kill them. She won't kill them. She knows. I mean, she will if nobody comes and helps her, but she'll come get me and say, there's a spider, and I'll go get it and remove it. Or her sister will. All right, leave my squirrel alone. Debbie, do you have one that comes and sits in your yard and talks with you? I'm just telling you, chipmunk, squirrel, rabbit. I'm out in the wild. I've gotten lost. Nobody knows where I am, and I don't know where anybody is. Okay? I'm lost. I'm hungry. I'm thirsty. I found a creek. I'm getting some water, but I'll be damned. I'm not getting any food. All right? And there's this rabbit just sitting there. He's bored. He's looking at me. He's like, hey, what are you doing out here? He doesn't understand the danger he could be in. He's just kind of an innocent rabbit. He's sitting there. Yo, what's up? Huh? You know? And I'm like, oh, come a little bit closer. I'm all alone. And the night is so long. So the rabbit's silly enough to get close. I bend over. I reach out. He fails to move in time. And I scratch his ears and tell him hello. I'm telling you. All right? Bugs in the house, no. Outside, okay. Rachel, she didn't grow up in a barn. Thank you for sharing that. I never saw a barn on the north side of Chicago anyways. Thank you, Ann. All right. It's time to meta, ironically, right? Here we are talking about killing, who to kill, what to kill, when to kill. And now we're going to transition to closing this with a reflection on loving kindness. Becky, I got to stop and just look at this and say, I sang to a lizard one day, and he followed me as I sang. I wish you had a video of that. I swear I would like to watch that video. If you ever do that again, please take pictures. All right. I bring my hands together before my heart. I bow my head. I close my eyes, and I take a deep breath. May I be happy, healthy, and free from harm, free from anger, anxiety, and fear. And may this path bring me freedom from all suffering and bring me greater peace and comfort. May my mother and father and all my living relatives and all my friends, may they too be happy, healthy, free from harm. May they find the path that leads them to the life of great peace and comfort. And to send loving kindness to those that I feel may have harmed me. That's just my perception. As I would wish anybody I may have harmed intentionally or unintentionally to wish me loving kindness, so do I send loving kindness. So all may be happy, healthy, free from harm, living lives of happiness and joy. And to all living beings throughout the universe, if they don't come in our house, may all bugs, all living beings, humans and non-humans, be happy, be healthy, be free from harm. May all living beings be able to live their lives in safety, comfort, and peace. Satu, 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 or Amen. Thank you, Joan, Kathy, Tammy, Lisa, Mark, and Ann, and Chris, and Becky, and Rachel, and I don't know who else showed up earlier. People come and go. Did I say goodbye to Lisa and Debbie? I think so. And Joan, yeah. Just scrolling to see who I knew is here. Both Kathys usually, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. Power to the people. Power to the immigrants. Right? What a twisted world it is some days, huh? Thank you, Mark. Say thanks to Ann for me, too. You got it, guys.